Hi folks, welcome back. Thank you for watching. Please do hit subscribe if you haven't done so yet. As always, it really does help when you do that. So, as you saw in episode 6, the rhythm guitars for the new track are all done. They're sounding really good, I think. I hope you guys agree. And I'm now going to take a few days break before starting the lead guitars, just to let my fingers recover a little bit. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about writing melodies, and this is kind of specifically for writing melodies on an instrument, but it also goes for pop song melodies as well. So let's rewind briefly to 2007. I was a terrified 17-year-old. I had no confidence whatsoever. I was so shy. But I was also really starting to get into the really technical guitar players. Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, Paul Gilbert, Marty Friedman, John Petrucci, Yngwie, all those people. I was really into those guys when I was 17, 18. And I was lucky enough to meet a few of them, both at guitar shows, but also I went to a few of their VIP meet and greet experiences that they do before their shows. And I was lucky enough to meet Steve Vai, and I was 17 and he was gigging in Birmingham, which if you're not from the UK is about 100 miles north of where I live in Bristol. So I just passed my driving test. I was so scared of driving at that time, and yet I was driving on my own up to Birmingham and going to a Steve Vai show. So it was kind of a weird time of me trying to kind of find my feet a little bit. Anyway, I drove to Birmingham, and for whatever reason, I think the band was coming from France, and they got stuck in customs. So they were hugely late for the gig. There was talk of the gig being called off. Didn't happen in the end, which was good. Anyway, the Q&A session that was going to happen actually ended up happening after the show. So they cut a whole hour out of the gig. And then the Q&A with Steve was afterwards. So this was about 1 in the morning at this time. And I was sat there and I took my guitar along, and whenever I met any of those sort of guitarists at meet and greet things, I'd take this particular guitar along because this was my number one back then and still kind of is. And I've got some great pictures of various virtuoso guitarists holding this guitar, and lots of them signed the back of it. And I would stick sticky back plastic over their autographs to protect them. But to be honest, the plastic looked really grim, so I've taken that off over the years and the signatures have worn away. But Steve's signature's still on the back here, and I love this because I took one of those gold permanent markers along with me for him to sign the guitar. And somewhere between Bristol and Birmingham, it must have got shaken up because it completely exploded when he tried to sign it, which was quite funny at the time. Guess he had to be there. Anyway, 1 in the morning, I was sat in a room with 30 other people doing a Q&A session with Steve Vai. I was really tired and shit scared, to be honest with you. Sat there, and I was sat there listening to everybody ask questions and Steve answer, and it was all really interesting stuff. And I kind of thought there and then, if I don't ask Steve Vai a question, given the opportunity to do so, I will regret it forever. So I kind of thought up something I'd like to get his opinion on. And I put my hand up, and he sort of looked around the room and went, "Yeah, you." And I practically crapped my pants. I was absolutely terrified. But what I asked him, and it's a problem that I was finding so much back then, and I still do a little bit now, but I was really bad with this when I was 17, 18. I asked him, lots of my guitar solos end up sounding very similar. Is there a way to try and sort of break out of that box a little bit? And he gave me some advice that's proven so useful for me over the years. So I wanted to kind of share that with you in this video series. It's not about recording as such, but obviously I wrote the backing track for this song, and I listened to the rhythm part of the demo and wrote a lead guitar part to it. Now, the advice he gave me was this: if you're writing a melody to a song, put your guitar down and write it in your head. Because if you hold the guitar and try to write a melody, your fingers will naturally fall into those sort of muscle memories, and you'll end up playing the same pentatonic licks over and over again, because that's what your fingers do almost on autopilot, and you don't have to think about it, and that's just what comes out. But if you put the guitar down and try to write the melody in your head, you'll use your kind of inner ear to write that melody, rather than your muscle memories, and you'll end up with some much more unique things. And I thought that was really interesting, and over the years I've tried to do that more and more, and it really does work. You come up with some really unique phrasings that you wouldn't if you were just sat there playing your normal licks on the guitar. So that was a really good piece of advice I was given, and I definitely used it writing a melody for this song. So the first part of the solo in the new song goes, if I can play it, something along the lines of this. So not particularly weird on the surface of it, but if you actually look what's going on, it starts on the 10th fret of the B string and does a full tone bend. Then you move up a fret and do a half tone bend, ending in sliding up yet another fret to the 12th. So the whole little phrase is something like this. So that isn't something that would have ever come out of a guitar player's fingers. And that is because I did exactly what Steve said, and if you are a Steve Vai fan, you'll see the sort of irony and in-joke in making this video number 7 in the Ditch to Fix series. If you get that, you're a nerd. Anyway, that isn't a guitar player's phrase, and that's because I listened to the backing track, I put the guitar down, and I started singing melodies in my head, not out loud because I have a terrible voice, but I started singing those melodies and then went and learnt it on the guitar. And that's why that phrasing is a little bit not guitar orientated. The next phrase is kind of the same thing. Now again, I'm jumping up and down like 2 or 3 frets at a time with my entire hand, which isn't something we want to do as a guitarist. We want to kind of stay in one box shape if we can. But again, that's because that's something that I came up with in my head and learnt on the guitar. And it translates really, really nicely. It sounds not like something I would ever write, which is great, and it's always good to challenge ourselves like that. So this is just a very, very short video to pass that bit of advice on to you guys, but I can tell you now it really does work, and it really has helped my guitar playing and melody writing over the years. So there's not really a point to this video other than to tell you that. If you guys have any bits of advice that you found work for you for writing melodies and coming up with new, fresh ideas on your instrument, please do share them below, and please do carry on writing in with your questions for the rest of this series. If you watched the first 6 videos about me actually recording and planning my recording sessions, please do ask me some questions about that as well, because that's what I want to drive this part of the channel, is I want your questions to inform the videos I make. So thank you for watching, guys. Please do carry on subscribing if you haven't done so yet. It really does help. And I will see you in episode 8 for some lead guitars. Bye-bye.